Welcome to the Generous Business Owner Podcast, where business owners gain inspiration and encouragement to live a legacy, not just leave one. And now your hosts, Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. My name is Jeff Thomas, and we have a very special guest with us today, Bobby Mitchell, who is the president and CEO of Applied Ceramics. Bobby, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Now, we're going to get into this. I've been on your website, and I'm just a financial nerd, and we'll get into the products because even after looking at your website, I have no idea what you make. But we're going to get into that here in a minute. But where we like to start, before we get to the business, tell us about what it was like in the Mitchell household growing up. Where were you? What were your folks like? I know there was a family business involved. I have a feeling that had some effect. But take us through the early years for Bobby.
The early years. Okay. Well, I have two brothers, Lee and Chris, and so there were three of us. Growing up, we had a great childhood, kind of like if you could think of the stereotypical all-American childhood, we played sports, went to school, had friends, had a great time growing up, really involved. God was a really big part of our house. My parents became new believers and really got on fire in the early 70s in Atlanta.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was born in 1971, so I really didn't know any different, but they really were focused on their faith and raising us that way. And so that was a big part of our growing up. So I was pretty well taught coming out of school. And then played sports. My dad coached baseball for all of us. And then let's see, for me personally, I left, I graduated, went to Vanderbilt, had an awesome time at Vanderbilt. And then I came back and worked in the family business, which I swore I would never do
Well,
ever.
okay, so let's talk about that little phase there, right?
Yeah.
Um, I love this family business topic. I'm not necessarily in one. I kind of started this thing. We do have my daughter does work here, but uh, we always talk about, well, in generous business owner language, if you've seen one generous business owner, you've seen one. Okay, I would say it's also true of family businesses. They're all different, but some of the dynamics are different. So one of the things you often hear with family businesses, go work somewhere else 3 or 4 years, cut your teeth someplace, and then we'll talk about it, kind of thing. Was there any of that discussion, or was your dad like, hey man, we got to get you in here immediately? How was that interaction like while you're exiting college?
So for me, I had worked a couple of summers out here during college.
Okay.
Um, and so, it's a manufacturing plant. So it's, hot, a little bit dirty,
Yep.
very, very physical. And, there's no way after Vanderbilt, I'm coming back to this place ever. And
Right,
I mean, I'm just, my standards are just way too high.
right,
And I had two things that happened. One was, and it's kind of a theme in my life where God closes doors and opens doors. And if I'm astute enough, I can kind of see where he's working, and it kind of leads me in different places. Now, it always surprises me too, so I don't have it all figured out, but I did become a Christian at 7, and so I had that heritage. But then at Vanderbilt, I kind of didn't wasn't practicing. I was more practicing fraternity lifestyle, if that
right.
makes sense. And so at the end of my college, I'm looking for a job, not really having any luck, a lot of doors closed, not praying about it. And then I went on it's a longer story, but I went on a Young Life trip that summer. I had been very involved in Young Life in high school, and my former leader had invited me to go as kind of a junior leader, kind of a college kid to
Yeah,
help
yeah,
high
sure.
school kids. And I was really ugly to him. I was like, the last thing I'm going to do is go on a high school trip with a bunch of kids. I'm never doing that. So of course, I ended up doing that. I told him the night before the trip left. That's so I just didn't want to give up and finally did. Had a pretty radical, I wouldn't say conversion because I was already a Christian,
Yeah.
but it was like a pretty radical coming back to God at the end of the trip.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to do my life differently and go a different direction. So I was trying to find a job, didn't have one. My dad, he had just done a deal with General Motors and actually needed to hire somebody
Uh,
kind of with my skill set, which was
yep.
a college engineer. I had an
Right.
engineering degree. And so he said, I've got this job. I'm not going to make you come, but I'm going to have to hire somebody with your skill
Right.
set, which is effectively zero. And so you at least can come join me. And so I did. I took the job and I started doing Young Life as a volunteer leader in Atlanta at the same time. So that's kind of what led me back to, and I did that for about 3 years. And then I was totally planning to go back to business school. Um, and I did Young Life. Actually, I did Young Life for 4 years, and it was a lot of the themes that ended up affecting my tenure at Applied Ceramics in a professional setting. I actually lived out in Young Life, which was kind of interesting that apparently I didn't learn the lesson, so God had to reteach me multiple times. So basically when I was a young life leader, we didn't have any, we went through a period where no kids, the way it's set up is kids come to a club once a
Yeah.
week and there's some adult leaders and you sing songs, have a message and you skits and it's a fun and
Yeah.
it's directed for like a non-believer to come to be
Right.
interesting for a non-believer and present the gospel. And so we actually bottomed out. We had a club of zero one night where the kid whose house we were having it at bolted, didn't tell her mom. We showed up and so there were literally no high school kids.
Wow.
So you can do no worse than zero. Um, and so, but that led me through a period where I found what Jim Rayburn had done, the founder of Young Life, and he had gone through the same exact problem with his original Young Life clubs. And he was really, so I just followed his playbook. I prayed about it, got a lot of other people to pray about it. God started to move, things started to happen, trusted in him. And I kind of call it being in the, um, just being so aligned with him that you just see miracles happening left and right and things that were far beyond my ability to happen. And so we went from zero to 100 kids in
Wow.
like 3 months. And it got to be the talk of the school. It got to be popular. And it's a small school. So you ended up having the school's about 650 kids in the high
Wow.
school. So you had like 20% there 15 to 20% there on a given night, and a lot of kids couldn't come. So you were just making a huge impact, starting Bible studies, kids coming to Christ.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what I mean. It was far beyond me, but I kind of tapped into, I learned about being in in the zone, so to speak, with God
Yeah.
and the Holy Spirit. So
Kind of getting out of the way, getting to
yeah,
the end of your rope and then turning it over to him and seeing what happened. Uh,
yeah.
all right. Just for my edification, give us a couple of minutes on the business. What are the big products and what are the applications?
Sure. So ceramics and catalyst products. We sell to, it's all B2B, it's industrial. And if you think of a supply chain, an example would be we make a ceramic piece that goes inside a catalytic converter that goes on a car.
Okay.
You're never ever going to buy the ceramic piece. You're either going to buy a new car or you're going to, with a gas engine, the electric cars don't need a catalytic converter, but you're either going to buy a new car or you're going to go to Midas and buy a catalytic
Yeah.
converter. And you're never going to see our part. You're never going to see the catalyst. And
Yeah.
so we do all sorts of products like that. So we're up the supply chain.
Okay.
So you're never going to find us unless we're either in somebody's product or they use us to help make their product. Those are really the two ways that you would use our
And what's a
stuff.
little bit of the, thank you for that. What is a little bit of the history of the business? Did your dad start it? How many generations has this been going?
So we started this business started in 1967. Ironically, my grandfather, who was the head of the ceramic engineering department at Georgia Tech,
Huh.
two of his students started the business in
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
1967. In 1976, my dad um, was in Atlanta and had transitioned to real estate. He had been in the ceramic manufacturing business, had a master's in ceramic engineering, but had moved back to Atlanta to sell real estate. Um, and then the real estate market tanked. So my grandfather hired him to teach at Tech while he was trying to figure out what to do. And then the owner of Applied Ceramics contacted my grandfather and said, "Can you send somebody out? We're losing our shirt. I need somebody to help me figure out if I keep this thing open or shut it down." My dad came out, basically wrote a report and said, "You should keep it going. This is what I recommend." The guy said, "I want to hire you as the president, implement the plan." My dad was like, "No way," because it was a small little company and my dad had some other job offers. But he and my mom had been praying for an opportunity that God would lead him to the right opportunity. And what my dad was really fascinated about was, can you run a business on biblical principles?
Hmm.
And at the time in the early 70s, there was nothing published on it. There wasn't but he really had this passion of, can you actually do it? He didn't know. So
Probably
anyway,
didn't know anybody doing it, or not many.
right. It
Yeah.
wasn't talked about. Marketplace ministry was not a thing at that time.
Right.
And so he came back to Bert, who was the business owner, and Bert goes, "I want you to come work for me." And my dad goes, "I have two conditions." And Bert said, "Well, what are your two conditions?" And my dad said, "Well, I want to be able to buy into the company." And so Bert, telling the story years later, said, "I've got this 30-year-old kid sitting across from me that wants to buy my business that's losing its shirt. Absolutely. How much would you like?" It's not hard. What's your second condition?
Yeah.
And my dad said, "Well, I want to run it like a Christian company." And Bert was not a Christian and said, "Well, what does that mean?" And my dad, being a new Christian, said didn't know what it meant either. And
Right.
so
Didn't know how
he's
to
like,
answer.
he goes, like tithe the profits. And
Right.
Bert telling the story later was like, "I've got a 30-year-old kid sitting across from me that just used the word profits, and he was the first one." And he goes, "I didn't know what tithe meant, but I was like, deal. If you said
Wow.
profits, it's a deal." So they basically, my dad came in, they turned it around. He and Bert bought out the other owners, ran it as a partnership. And then out of that, they started Fellowship of Companies for Christ,
Okay.
which is a ministry that still goes on today for Christian. It's basically to answer that fundamental question my dad started with: is how do you run a company on biblical principles and glorify God? How can you be a steward with what you've got and really make a kingdom impact with your business? So they started that, and it's grown today and is still around. I'm actually on the board of directors of FCCI today.
How do people engage in that? If we've got somebody that wants to learn more about that, what
You can go to the
else?
website,
Yeah.
fcci.org. It's
Yeah.
Fellowship of Companies for Christ International.
Got it.
And so you can
Got
go
it.
to the website, fcci.org.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes,
Yeah, and
so
we
people
we
can
get
can
together and it's a collection of Christian CEOs and business owners, and it's really the whole point of the ministry is to equip and encourage CEOs and business owners to make kingdom impact. That's really
love
the
it.
yeah.
Love it. Do you have local meetings? Is it just a national conference? What's the setup generally?
We well, there are small groups
Okay.
that are international. There are conferences that are once a year, and then there
Okay.
are small meetings throughout the year in various locations around
Got
the
it.
country.
Okay. That's cool. All right. So there was this legacy
Yeah.
of this deal. It's just such a cool story. And my youngest daughter just got out of grad school, an engineering grad school. So I can sort of picture the scene of the professors and they all present their project, turns into a business, and then the business is struggling. Call the old professor, old professor sends his son, who's kind of a new professor. It's just I love the story but well, and obviously it worked. I mean, this
Right.
is 1976. Here we are having a conversation about this all these years later. Uh, how does your dad describe what the turnaround was like? Was there a just? It had to be painful, frankly.
No, he came in.
Yeah,
My dad's got a really good business mind.
yeah.
He's the ultra entrepreneur. So he came in and took control of it. And
Pretty quickly turned it around.
yeah, he doubled or tripled the productivity. He cut the
Wow.
inventories in half. He negotiated a couple of deals where he got paid in 10 days, just flipped the cash, focused on a couple of products and really went after it, doubled the sales. So within a year or two, they're like growing and they're cash flowing and um, they're doing pretty well. My dad's plan all along was to flip it. So he was
Okay.
coming for a 2 to 3 year flip,
Okay.
and then that didn't work. He tried to sell it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So his
Well,
his
your
thought
kids,
was
what before you were in it?
before
Okay.
we were in it. And Yeah, he even when he first came out, he was planning to be here for a week, and do a week long consulting
Right.
gig. And then it
Right.
turned into a couple of years, and then he
Right.
flipped it, and then it
It was
turned
always a
into
short-term idea, and it
it was
turned into a
always a
40
short term
year,
idea. And
50 year.
so, and then I showed up in '93, and then my brother Lee showed up, and then Chris showed up, and he blinked and he had a family business. He's like, what in the world? So he had no intention of having a family business.
Well,
But but
even the
roles
way,
emerged for all three of us kind of at the right time, which was kind of
yeah.
the lines.
Uh,
And he was
so
pretty good. I will say this. One other comment was
yeah.
he would take us to FCCI conferences,
Mm,
all three of us, which is a young businessman out of school,
mm,
was very helpful in my worldview, forming the
exactly.
way I
Having a
see stuff.
vision that was aligned.
And I'll say that, I mentioned the young life story of how it
Yeah.
kind of exploded. It exploded at the very end, like the fourth year of my 4 years. And it happened because I went to an FCCI conference and I heard Bruce Wilkinson talk, and it unlocked all this stuff. I didn't do it at work. I did it within Young Life, but I followed the principles that Bruce kind of laid out, and it absolutely exploded in a good way. But it was through FCCI.
Right.
And so that's where I have this really interesting overlap of my spiritual life, my business life, my personal life, volunteer. It all kind of overlaps, and it's hard to distinguish what came from what sometimes.
So just to clarify, so this is just to connect the dots to make sure I've got it right. The so you go to an FCCI thing. Your dad's taking you, like he's super passionate about this. Um,
I'm
you see,
25.
you're
I'm
25, right?
25
I
years
love it,
old.
and you're volunteering at this sort of fledgling,
Correct.
young life group. You go to zero, but you're kind of it's cool because at work that's not how it all was, certainly back then, and for many people, not today. So at work, you're kind of getting this inspiration. Essentially, it's a work conference
Yes.
ish. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
mean, okay, it's a collection of business people.
Yes.
You kind of get that inspiration, like, hey, man, I really need to lean into this prayer. Oh, by the way, at the same time, the Young Life founder had the same. You know what I mean? There's probably this. Am I sort of saying that right? And so it's like, okay, hey, I'm hearing this multiple places, and I gotta get out of the way and let God do it. And look what happens.
Yeah, the Young Life arena was kind of like a lab where I got to test different things. And so it
Yeah,
was really
yeah,
a
yeah.
leadership development. It was like the most unbelievable leadership development because I was recruiting people, I was teaching people, I was leading people, I was organizing it. And it was just kind of wild. So
How
from
was it's really cool that you have that legacy of a business that way. You and I both know a lot of people, and a lot of people listening to this, they might be in this boat, or they certainly know people in this boat where, um, you know, you could have bought a business. A lot of people buy a business that's not really going after Christian principles, or they inherit a business and maybe the people they inherit don't have the same worldview, and converting a culture can be hard. I mean, you can do it, but it can be hard because you have some people in there that are maybe key players that aren't really aligned with sort of that vision that you want to take it on. So, sort of as running a company, how have you seen? Have there been any changes like inside the company over the years? I mean, that's a long time, man. 50 years,
Yeah,
almost.
absolutely.
What, and you've been there 30 plus. How has that, what does that arc look like? How do you sort of describe that arc of how that, I love the passion your dad had, but I gotta think, what's been maybe the growth of the business and how that culture has shifted or changed, or how those Christian principles have shown themselves over the years?
So, um, as a leader of a business, you have a big impact on the business. And so my dad had a big impact of
Yeah,
what his values were, what he wanted to do, the
right.
impact he wanted to make. And so I would say my two brothers and I
Yeah,
all shared the values, but they've got to be your own
exactly.
to
It
take,
was
and so they've
dad's
got to be
thing. We're
transitioned. And
following
so
dad.
dad's great. And so what happened to me was I kind of checked out a little bit because I was
Yeah,
on autopilot because it was
yeah,
just my dad's vision, not mine. And I was okay with it. And it wasn't,
yeah.
but if you to pass it on, it's got to be yours and your
Oh, so
passion.
true. That's such a great point, man. So
And
true.
so your question was what's changed? Well, my
Yeah,
dad's not in the business right now.
yeah.
My brothers and I bought him out last year.
Okay,
So now if all and we have reorganized and split into three different businesses,
okay.
which is a typical founder deal. It's not like we didn't have them before. It's just my dad was in charge of everything and didn't care because he was in charge of everything. So
Exactly.
is long. But for my brothers and I, it made a lot of sense. We were running into each other
Right.
and doing some different stuff, and we decided to split up in a good way. Now
Yeah, yeah,
we all still own everything, or and we get along really well,
yeah.
but you've got to have that passion.
Yeah, the owning of the passion. I
Yes.
love that.
And you work it
Uh,
out differently. Depending on your own personality and desires, you work it out differently. So there's things that I am doing within that whole FCCI
okay,
bent, but I'm doing things differently than my dad did. And he
got
did
it.
things differently than I'm doing.
And I know that before we started recording, you told me that there was a bit of a catalyst event. I'd love to hear about that. What
Sure.
woke you up out of that sleep?
So, okay, so I ended up going to business school, trying to leave. And then,
I'll go back to business school and then get a different job. Was that the idea?
yeah, I was going to use
Yeah,
that
yeah,
as
yeah.
because it's hard to
Right,
leave a family business. You can't
right, right, right.
once you leave, there's no coming back. You can't be the
Okay,
guy that like leaves and comes back because
okay,
you lose
okay,
all the respect, right?
okay, okay.
You
Right,
can't.
right.
So like once you leave, it's
Oh,
done.
okay, okay.
So anyway, I was gonna go do just like my dad, ironically, it was very
Yeah,
short term. I was going to leave, go to business school, do something else.
yeah.
And then it worked out that I went to Georgia Tech, which is here in Atlanta, and I went part time and kept my job because the company paid for it. So I never really left.
Can't get away.
And my dad made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Hilarious.
Um, but then fast forward, into 2008, um, and my brothers are here. I'm here, and my dad, who had never really had a lot of debt, the business had been largely debt free for a long time. Um, in the 2005 to 2007 time period, money was really cheap, and so we expanded and got really aggressive on some expansion. And then 2008 came, and so we kind of got caught.
Yeah.
We were still profitable, but we had reduced our sales by 50%.
Wow.
And so there was an event that happened. I don't know if you remember 2008, but it was a weird time.
Oh, vividly.
It was
Yes.
a very, it was a very weird
Vividly.
time.
Yep.
And so I remember we had expanded into South Carolina, and I was there on a Friday afternoon with our banker from Wachovia.
Uh-huh.
And Wachovia was one of the banks that went under.
Oh
But
yeah,
on
that's right.
Friday, my banker was like, Bobby, give me a call. Let's go play some golf next time you're up here. I was like, great. Literally by Monday, Wachovia was shut down. All those guys were fired, and it ended up getting sold to Wells Fargo.
Exactly.
And our account that had been fine all of a sudden wasn't fine because we didn't realize we actually sold. We were profitable. We were cash flowing.
Yeah.
We hit all of our covenant numbers,
Yeah.
but we sold some stock because it made sense just to increase our cash position.
Okay.
But when we did, there was one metric that went from like a 1.51 to a 1.49
Yeah.
on I don't even remember what it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
but it triggered an alarm, and all of a sudden we got put in distressed assets.
Oh my gosh.
And so when you go into that,
They
it's
call it. They can call
it's
it.
it's not innocent until proven guilty. You're
Right.
guilty until proven
Correct.
innocent.
Correct. Correct.
And so
Correct.
nobody cares, nobody likes
No, no.
you.
And
You're
it's
a
a total
liar.
financial crisis. It's just all over the board. There's yeah, it's yeah,
So
nightmare.
it was horrible. And so
Wow.
kind of the low point was they were going to auction us off.
Wow.
They were gonna call our loans, auction us off, and we're still profitable, by the way. In
No, no,
cash,
I know.
we
Yeah, yeah,
missed
yeah.
a payment. We had there was
But still a fire sale because they had the right.
right. So the low point for me was I had to walk the auctioneer around the plant,
Oh my
and
God.
he was so rude and so terrible. He was like, this equipment's horrible. This is horrible.
Right.
This
Super
isn't worth
negative.
anything.
Yeah.
I can't get anything for this." And if you know, in manufacturing, there is a strategy to having fully depreciated equipment.
Exactly.
I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
He didn't
not
get the game.
zero. I mean,
Yeah, he didn't
it's
understand the
he
business.
didn't understand the
No,
business.
no.
So that was kind of my low point, in and
Wow.
around that time.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay. I mean, the arc of the story is crazy. Like, I don't want to go there out of college. Dad offers a job. Okay, now I can find. Okay, I go get the MBA so I can switch. Okay, go back. Oh, great.
Now we're about to
Financial
lose our family
crisis.
business.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're ramping this thing up. This okay, hey, maybe we got something here. Goes to okay, so how do we kind of get out of that morass? And then where's
Okay.
that sort of spiritual
So
awakening?
then we rallied. My dad is phenomenal. Learned a lot from my dad during that
Wow, I bet.
period. And my two brothers and I, we all really rallied during that period
Yeah,
and really did a really good job.
good.
So then we get to 2015, which is what 6 7 years later. And by that point, you know, I've got kids, I'm
Right.
coaching baseball. um, you know, I'm just really involved. I'm kind of on autopilot, and I got my job, but I'm, it's going okay. And or at least I think I'm going okay.
Right, right,
It's
right, right.
going okay, right? Um, I get a call from a friend of mine. This is 2015. I get a call. He goes, "Hey, are you free for lunch?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I hadn't seen him in like 6 or 7 years. It's been like a while since I've
Right.
seen him, right? So it's not normal that he would call me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So we go to lunch, and I'm figuring he's going to hit me up for like some charity, or like he's going to
Right.
sell something or want me to
Right.
join something, or like I'm waiting for it, right?
Right, right. You're
Like we've all
braced.
been there, right? I'm
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
for
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
So after about 15 minutes, I'm like, "Hey man, hey Todd, like I'm really happy to eat lunch with you, but like, why are we eating lunch?
Yeah.
What's the
Right,
deal?"
right. Yeah. What? Yeah.
And he goes, "I don't know. I was hoping you could tell me." And I'm like, "That's the weirdest answer I've ever heard.
Right.
Like, what does that mean?" He goes, "Well, Bobby, this morning I was in my quiet time, and God told me to talk to you, take you to lunch." And he goes, "I have no idea why." And I go, "Well, that's kind of freaky, you know?"
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just kind of sitting there stunned. And he goes, "I
Yeah.
tell you what, why don't we just keep talking for a little bit and let's just see where it goes?" So we start talking, and like 10 minutes later, he snaps his fingers. He goes, I
Got
know
it.
exactly why we're here. You need to call my friend Mike. And I'm like, okay, who's Mike? And he's like, Mike is a friend of mine that works for his dad, and um, you need to call Mike. Here's his number, and I'll, tell him that you
So
talked
you're
to
at
me.
lunch, and that was the outcome. He's
Right.
like,
So
call
I
Mike.
so I go back and I call Mike, and I'm like, and Mike's like, who is this? And I'm like, well, you don't know me. And
We're
he
back to why are we having this conversation? Yeah.
Right. And this is 2015. So it's before cell phones and it's before all that stuff. So I'm like, hey, you don't know me, but I just had lunch with Todd, and he told me I needed to talk to you. And he said, you've got a story about your dad. And so
Yeah.
he's like, oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
So and then he asked me a bunch of questions, and
Yeah.
he's like, why are you calling me again? Like we couldn't quite figure it out, but he said the same. He literally said the same thing Todd said of
Right.
let's just start talking.
Right.
You tell me, and about 10 minutes in, he's like, I know exactly what we need to talk about. And he said, you've given up on God. And
Wow.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I go to Sunday school, I go to church,
Right.
I
Right.
can teach Sunday school, I can teach the
Right.
lesson, I counsel people, I was a young life leader. I know, like, I haven't given up on God. And he goes, you totally have. He goes, there are things in your life that you consider impossible that you've given up on. And you don't even pray about them anymore because you just given up. And I
Hmm.
was like, that is not true. I'm the best Christian ever. And he said, and then he told me his story a little bit. And then he said, I tell
Yeah.
you what, do this. This is your homework. Go get it. Go sit at your desk, take out a white sheet of paper and pray and say, God, bring to mind all the things that I think are impossible.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, this is stupid. There's not going to be any, but I'll do it to humor the guy, Mike. So I pray and I go, okay, can God bring the things? And so one comes up and I'm like, well, that's probably a pretty good one. And the second one comes up and the third one. I end up writing down 11.
Wow.
And by the time I get to 11, I'm in a closed office. I'm
Yeah.
weeping by the time I get to 11.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm looking at the 11 things and I'm like, these are totally things I don't think are going to happen. I've given up on these things.
Hmm.
And so I call Mike back and I'm like, I have to eat a little bit of crow. I'm like, okay. And he's like, how many did you get? And I'm like, 11. He's like, I told you. He goes, it was emotional, wasn't it? And I was like,
Yeah.
and so he kind of walked me through. He's like, this is what you do. You pray about them. And he walked me through kind of a way to go through that. And that put me on a path to where even today I have my prayer list of impossible things.
I love that.
So even to this day, I have this, if anything's impossible, it goes on the list. It's awesome. I can't
And
wait for possible
what's
things.
cool. You know what's cool about that, Bobby? Sorry to interrupt. I keep thinking about the Young Life experience where you got it to zero. I mean, when I heard that, I was like, okay, so you quit and did something else, right? And you're like, no. I was like, okay, what I need to do is pray and God will solve it. I was like, well, clearly God's not in it. There's nobody showing up. I mean, that's sort of the human attitude. Did you kind of you had a little bit of that muscle memory, right? Do you feel like that's true? Did you think of that at that time?
Not at the time,
Uh-huh.
but God is great because God sees through us.
He's
And
patient and did it again.
well, I literally feel today, 10 years later, I think he sent Todd back to get me in
Mm.
a way that was acceptable to get my attention, to bring me back to where I was like, when Jesus talks about, I'm going to go after the lost sheep.
Yeah.
I have 99 over here, but I'm going to
Yeah.
go after the lost sheep. He sent him to come get me. I
Wow.
was lost and I was not on a good path, and I didn't even know I was lost. And he sent somebody that I respected and liked to get me and pull me and walk me back. And so, you don't go from 0 to 60 in a day. I mean, it takes, some work, but it put me on the right path. coming back and kind of relying on God to where I could pray and hear from him. And, once you get back aligned with him, the way I had been at the end of the Young Life story, like I didn't, like, even though I remembered it, like you were
Yeah.
talking muscle
Yeah.
memory, I wasn't there.
Right, right, right,
I
right. We're
had to
we're in that
like,
mindset.
I had
Yeah.
fallen so far away from that. I had to kind of work back, but that was my heart deep down, and
Yeah.
God knew that. And God knew He just needed to pull me back. So I do think that was a miracle in my life.
That's thank you for sharing that. That's a really cool story. Does that sort of interesting to me that this combination of the FCCI thing that, your dad was a big part of and now you've embraced. I mean, that seems like a really awesome place to be telling that story and to be encouraging others. Because I know there's somebody listening to this on the treadmill that's like, "Oh, dude, that's totally me. This is like I gotta make my list." I think that's a
Right.
great exercise for anybody listening. What do you think's impossible? And like, oh, no, 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 I don't think. No, just pray. What do you think's impossible? And pray about the list. So, do you feel like FCCI gives you a little bit of a place to encourage other people the way you got encouraged?
It does. I get
Yeah,
to share my story
yeah,
periodically with stuff. Yeah, for
yeah, yeah,
sure. It was pretty cool. I'll make another comment on the list.
yeah,
God is so good, and he's so encouraging that when I made my list and I basically just gave up,
yeah.
he immediately answered three of them. Within a week, three of them got
Wow.
taken off the list. And then within a month, another two got taken off. And within, um, you know, a short period of time, like six or seven of them had been done. But I will say this, the last one of my 11
Hmm.
was still on my list until a month ago
Wow.
for 10 years.
Wow.
And what happened with that one was, look, this is me looking back today. It wasn't all about me or what I could do or not do. It depended on other people in my life had to change and go through some severe change of direction in order to bring about what I had been praying for. Not from a selfish standpoint, but like, when you're in a family business, sometimes you get locked up a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, even in great situations like mine, you can get locked up sometimes, and it's not all about you.
Right.
And so other people have to open their hands,
Uh,
so for God to work. That's what I mean. Not, and so then things just shifted and changed, and so yeah, so a lot of them happened quickly. One of them took 10 years. And to your point, I was sharing this at an FCCI event in March, and I told them there was still one that remained on the list that had not been answered yet. And people were like, well, doesn't that frustrate you? And no, it doesn't, because I do what I need, what I can control, I do. I give it to God. And if it's not going to work out, it's not going to work out.
as I think about this list, this is a fascinating thing. I want to try this. I think one of the most important things that I'm thinking about is I could make a list of impossible things that are very selfish.
Right.
I think because I was thinking of asking you the question, like, what's so important about having God overtake impossible things? I mean, I could make a list of 11 impossible things. Like I said, but I think what you said that was so key is ask God what to put on the list.
Yeah.
If he makes the list, it's not going to be a selfish list. You know what I
If
mean?
you
I
were
mean,
if
you might benefit.
if you were to look at my list of 11
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
now it's morphed today
Yeah. Yeah.
into
Yeah.
into
Right. Right. You still do it.
200 things,
Yeah. You
right?
still do it.
But they're not necessarily impossible. It would be like, um,
Issues.
my son is trying to get an internship this summer, and I
Sure.
start praying about it. It doesn't
Right.
mean it's impossible. It's just it's really more of a prayer list
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't let it stop. I'm willing to put anything And they don't all get answered yes either, by the way.
No, no, yeah, of
And
course.
so, but there's a disproportionate number that work out in really unique ways that I don't think are coincidences.
But I love this idea of let God make the list.
Yeah.
I think that's key because it's going to reflect his heart. Things that,
But if you were to go back and look at my original list of 11
yeah.
and you just read it, you would say, well, this is selfish. This is selfish.
Well, I mean, maybe.
But to your point, they were things that bothered me deeply that I couldn't do anything about. I was
Right.
powerless and I wasn't even praying about it.
Yeah.
Right.
But kind of almost like roadblocks.
So like I'll give you an example. I had a rental house I was trying to sell
Yeah.
and I couldn't sell it. Everything
Right.
kept it just nothing worked. And I was really frustrated about it and really depressed about it. And I needed to sell it, right? It just
Yeah.
and so so the way that so I had tried all this stuff and it didn't work. And I put it on my list because I was embarrassed I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you know how I sold the rental house?
What's that?
Somebody knocked on my door at my actual
Come
house
on.
and said, "Hey, I looked up and it looks like you
Come
own this
on.
house over here, and we're trying to do a roll up, and we're interested if you would
Come
be
on.
interested in selling your rental house."
Yeah. After
That,
all
that
the
was the
stuff you had
one.
tried.
So
Yeah.
so that was the one that got done in 2 weeks. That
God,
like kind of like blew me away. And so that's an example of if you saw it, you'd be like, "Oh, well, that's a selfish one," but
right.
it really wasn't because I really was twisted up about it, didn't know how to do it, didn't work, and then God brought somebody literally to my front door to buy it.
I mean, I think to your point,
Because
even if
God's
it,
encouraging.
even if some of that stuff on there seems to be self-serving, God's so generous with the way he answers things. If you put on there win the lottery, okay, but what that really means is maybe you got a money problem or well, whatever it is. But he may solve that in a different way, right? Likely. So anyway, I just think that's such a cool exercise. Well, man, there's a million things I'd still love to ask you, but I know we're getting kind of the end of the time on the podcast today. And one thing we always try to kind of wrap with, Bobby, is the just a practical tip for somebody behind you on the journey. Um, and I won't lead the witness. What comes to mind as something somebody could wake up tomorrow if they're running a business and they want to just kind of have this generosity mindset? What's something they can do tomorrow to move generally in the right direction?
Um, well, I would add the tip we just talked about
Yeah,
was number one, ask him,
I love it.
go
What do you think's
sit with a
impossible?
blank. Yeah, well, not even that, but like, what do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do?
Like you just asked me a question is what's a tip of how to be more generous? Ask him.
Yeah.
It's going to be a different answer for everybody depending on your situation.
Mm,
You know, I did that actually in 2015. Actually, I got through this doing the list. The list was a first step, right? I didn't stay there. It was a first step and it got my heart right. And so then I did what I just said. I asked God, what is it that you want me to do with
mm.
do I need to stay at Applied Ceramics for the rest of my career?
Oh yeah.
I don't want to do that, but if you want me to, I'm willing to do it. What do you want me to do? And
Mm.
God came back. Literally, this is the same year, and it was actually at an FCCI conference. Not trying to plug FCCI,
Yeah,
but
no, no, I get it.
that was a place where I was really praying. I was more on fire, more praying, more listening to God. This whole thing of asking Him. And I said, "What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go?" And He said, "Applied Ceramics, and I want you to repair the walls."
Wow.
And I heard it. It was audible. I wrote it down. I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Repair the what?
Walls.
The walls. Okay,
WALLS.
like Nehemiah. Like
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. And I'm like, what does that have to? I don't understand. I have this great heritage. I have this great dad. I mean, we have this
The walls are fine,
complicated.
right?
The walls are fine.
Yeah,
What does
yeah.
that mean? And over
Wow.
time, that's a podcast,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
season
sure.
two discussion. But basically, that was in 2015. So it's always been there, repair the walls. I don't know what to do about it, right? So in 2025, 10 years later, of me trying to figure out what that means, and we've done a lot of stuff. We have chaplains, we have care programs. There's a lot of things we do in the company, and there's a lot of things we donate to outside of the company, you know. And I came across Isaiah 58 this year. And in Isaiah 58, you can talk about, you can read it yourself, but basically at the I never knew what it meant. And so he come in Isaiah 58, he's saying, you act like you're a Christian, you say you're a Christian, but you don't, what you're doing doesn't resonate with me. And then he goes through, this is what resonates with me. And he basically says, if you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls.
Mm. Wow.
So 10 years, and I didn't know what it meant, but like that's like, so that's literally the list of what I need to do and apply. That's changed my whole ministry plan right now of, okay, how do
Change
I
your
leverage
focus.
the company? How do I leverage the company and what I'm in charge of to loose the chains of injustice, untie the yoke of oppression? What does that even mean? Like,
Right.
right? Like, how do I even do this? How do I, clothe the needy, feed the hungry? Like, how do I do all that? And so I don't have it all figured out.
So he did you kind of find that verse after he told you rebuild the walls?
He told me in 2015 when I sat down and like you
Yeah,
asked,
yeah,
what is one practical tip?
yeah,
You get a blank sheet of paper and ask God a question and then
yeah,
write down what he says.
exactly.
And so he said, repair the walls. And I
Right.
haven't known what it's meant for 10 years.
Yeah.
So
And
I
then you
just
found that.
found it this year.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah,
was a
yeah, yeah.
journey. I've been trying to do the right
So good,
things.
dude. I love this. I think that's an important story, man, because you've been wrestling with it.
Yeah,
What does that mean? And now it's becoming clear, but you're still on that journey, you know?
yeah, exactly.
Well, man, I think that's awesome. It's like, hey, if you're feeling a little stuck, um, I think one tip, make a list of the impossibles. But then in general, if I want to get on the right track, what do I need to do? Maybe what are you telling me? And just listen
Either way, go get by yourself,
and ask him.
get a blank sheet of paper and something to write with, and pray and ask him,
Exactly.
what is there anything that I think is impossible in my life?
Right. And then what do you want me to do? How
What do you
about
want
a
me to do?
thing or two that you want me to do? And
Right.
I think you'll be surprised what he says.
Yeah.
And
So
then
it's
figure it
pretty
out.
wild. It's pretty wild.
It is awesome. Great encouragement. Well, hey, Bob, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jeff.
And thanks everybody for joining us on this week's Generous Business Owner Podcast. Share it with a friend, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Generous Business Owner Podcast with Jeff Thomas, Alan Barnhart, and Jeff Rutt. Make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. You can find the guest contact information in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.